Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling, a topic that often feels like maybe the most dreaded item on the corporate calendar: performance appraisals.
Yes, the annual review.
Exactly. That review that can feel more like a bureaucratic chore than a real growth opportunity.
Yeah.
But what if we told you that, according to our deep dive into the latest research, these aren't just admin tasks.
Not at all.
They're actually central to how organizations manage their people and, ultimately, their performance. So the mission for us today is to peel back those layers, really unpack their true power, understand the objectives, and figure out how to transform them from something dreaded into something genuinely worthwhile for everyone involved.
And, this isn't just theory. Understanding this stuff is critical for, anyone in an organization, really. Whether you're managing a team or you're the one being reviewed. The success, the actual value, and frankly, the relevance of the whole appraisal process, it hinges entirely on careful preparation and a clear, shared understanding from everyone.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
We sort of know appraisal systems exist to improve organizational efficiency, right? But how exactly do they do that? What are their fundamental purposes beyond just, ticking a box?
Well, what's truly insightful here is that appraisals aren't just about efficiency in a cold, hard sense. They're about empowering individuals, helping them perform their best, develop their full potential, and earn appropriate recognition.
Right.
And when all those pieces align, that's when you see a direct uplift in organizational performance. Now, traditionally, the research points to three core purposes, and honestly, these are often misunderstood or maybe unbalanced in practice.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's the reward review. This is the one most people immediately think of. It's about measuring an individual's performance to figure out, eligibility for a salary increase or bonus, often comparing them to their peers.
So that's the financial piece, the bit that can often dominate the whole conversation. But our sources seem to suggest focusing too much on that can actually backfire.
Absolutely. It's essential, of course. But the data does reveal that putting too much weight on salary during appraisals can actually demotivate people. It shifts their focus from genuine growth to just thinking about the compensation.
Right, just the paycheck.
Exactly. True insight, real value, comes when the other two purposes are given equal, if not maybe even greater, weight. The second purpose is the performance review.
Okay.
This is where an organization identifies specific training needs and provides the necessary development to help someone meet their objectives in their current role. It's all about continuous improvement and growth right where you are now.
So improving the job you have.
Precisely. And then there's the potential review. This aspect looks forward. It is an individual's career development by trying to predict future work capabilities.
Predicting the future. Sounds tricky.
It is, but it's not just about spotting future leaders, although that's part of it. Our sources highlight how a well-done potential review can uncover untapped skills that might be crucial for where the organization is heading strategically.
So looking for hidden talents.
Yes, or even identifying people who could thrive in totally new areas if they got the right development. It's more like proactive talent mapping, not just reacting when a promotion spot opens up.
That's a much richer picture than just the pay raise chat most people think of. So for you, our listener, maybe as an employee or even for an organization as a whole, what are the direct, tangible benefits when all these pieces actually click into place?
It's understandable why employees often question the value and the effort involved, given how appraisals are sometimes handled.
Definitely.
But when done right, for you as an individual, it clearly sets out the key results you need to achieve, usually within a specific time frame. And it compares your performance against clear standards. So clarity.
Clarity is good.
And the organization gains significantly too. It lets them identify employees who are ready for promotion, pinpoint areas where individuals need a bit more support or improvement, and crucially, use the whole system as a vital foundation for strategic human resource planning, looking across the entire workforce.
Okay, here's where it gets, really interesting and often quite frustrating, I think. If appraisals offer so many clear benefits, why are they so often perceived negatively? Sometimes even as a threat. We've all probably heard the horror stories.
It's true. There's a lot of misunderstanding and often, fear surrounding the appraisal interview itself. People sometimes do perceive their annual appraisal as a threat.
Why is that?
Well, what's fascinating is that this negativity isn't inevitable. It can actually be overcome if the system is well constructed, if it's seen as fair to the individual, and if it's applied consistently across the board.
So fairness and consistency are key.
Absolutely. Often, though, they're seen as confrontational. And that frequently stems from just a fundamental lack of agreement on performance standards, or maybe simply poor explanation from management about how the assessment was reached.
So a communication breakdown is a big part of it. Is that the whole story, though? Or does the research point to something maybe deeper in the system itself?
It absolutely does. Beyond just poor communication, our deep dive shows the very design of many appraisal systems can breed cynicism. Rigid annual cycles, maybe one-size-fits-all forms that don't really fit anyone. Sometimes they're also viewed as just a one-sided judgment, based entirely on what the manager thinks, with no real input.
Right. The manager just lays down the law.
Or at the other extreme, they get dismissed as simply a chat. Informal, nice, but losing all their formal purpose and structure.
So either too harsh or too fluffy.
Exactly. But perhaps the greatest problem, the one that really undermines things, is that appraisals are often regarded simply as a nuisance.
Just paperwork.
Pretty much. Our sources reveal this isn't just a minor annoyance. One study found managers spending almost 200 hours a year just on appraisal paperwork.
Wow, 200 hours.
And a significant chunk of them felt it was largely wasted effort. This is where the core purpose-identifying individual performance and improvement, both for the person and the organization, gets completely lost in the administrative weeds.
Yeah.
It just becomes this annual event, the results feel out of date almost immediately, and it's seen as bureaucratic form-filling just to satisfy, HR or some organizational requirement.
That's a pretty stark picture. So, knowing these deep-seated challenges, how can we ensure the appraisal interview, which you said is integral to the whole process, is actually done properly and carefully? How do we cut through that noise and get back to the real focus?
Excellent question. Because the appraisal interview is a formal, integral part of the system, and it really demands careful organization. The appraiser, who ideally should always be the immediate supervisor—
the person who actually knows the work.
Exactly. They have crucial preparation to do beforehand. This means getting the correct and relevant documentation together. Things like a current job description, is it still accurate?
Good point.
A statement of performance, or the actual appraisal form itself, of course. And importantly, a record highlighting the employee's performance over the review period notes, examples, data, if possible.
Okay, so the basics. Are there other documents that can add to that picture? Maybe ensure it's not just the manager's viewpoint.
Absolutely, yes. Other relevant documentation can make a big difference. Things like peer assessments, if they're appropriate for the role and part of the system.
That adds another angle.
It does. And we're seeing more organizations gathering comments from clients and customers too, especially for service roles. And importantly, any self-assessment forms the employee filled out beforehand are vital.
So the employee's perspective is formally included.
It should be. Finally, the individual's employment file should always be referred to. It often contains useful notes on general attitude, maybe training records, or any past disciplinary issues. All of this helps paint the fullest, most balanced picture possible, not just a snapshot.
Right. Our sources also present 3 sort of basic approaches to the appraisal interview itself. Methods practitioners have traditionally taken. What are these methods? What makes them distinct? And maybe, how do they fit in today?
Yeah, traditionally, many practitioners tend to lean on one of 3 basic approaches. The first is often called the tell and sell method.
Tell and sell. Sounds like sales.
It kind of is. Here, the appraiser explains their assessment, the tell part, and then aims to gain acceptance from the employee for both the evaluation and the proposed improvement plan, the sell part.
Okay.
Interpersonal skills are always important, obviously, but this approach really requires a manager to be highly persuasive to sort of convince the employee.
And how's that hold up now?
Well, our sources suggest that while it might be efficient for very specific, maybe immediate corrective feedback in highly task-oriented roles—
Like on a production line, maybe?
Perhaps. But in today's knowledge-based economy, it often stifles innovation and, crucially, psychological safety. People don't feel safe disagreeing or offering alternatives. So it's less about if it works and more about when it's appropriate, which the research suggests is probably far less often than it's used.
That sounds quite direct, almost like a directive being handed down. What's the second approach? A bit more collaborative, perhaps?
Yes, the alternative is the tell and listen method. In this approach, the appraisee is specifically invited to respond, to react to how the interview is being conducted, and more importantly, to share their own perspectives on the assessment.
So there's space for dialogue.
There is, but this requires strong counseling skills from the appraiser. Careful encouragement to allow for full and open participation. It's really about hearing the employee out properly.
Okay, and the third one?
And then finally, there's the problem-solving method. This generally takes a far more helpful and developmental stance. It concentrates on the appraisee's work problems or challenges.
Focusing on the work, not just the person.
Exactly. And it actively encourages them, the employee, to think through the issues themselves and propose solutions. The manager acts more like a guide, a facilitator, maybe a coach.
That sounds much more aligned with modern ideas about management and coaching.
It absolutely is. This method aligns much more closely with modern coaching philosophies and fostering ownership.
So 3 different methods: tell and sell, tell and listen, problem solving.
That's right. And crucially, regardless of which method or maybe a combination of methods is used, after the interview, both parties absolutely must agree on any actions to be taken. That's non-negotiable for it to be effective.
Agreement is key.
Yes, an agreed action plan on improvement, clear methods for monitoring progress down the line, and arrangements for appropriate feedback going forward. That shared agreement is vital for the appraisal to actually lead to change and not just be forgotten.
It's really clear how much deeper our understanding of appraisals can go, beyond just seeing them as that tedious annual event.
Yeah.
When they're understood properly and implemented thoughtfully, they truly seem like powerful tools for both individual growth and overall organizational improvement.
Absolutely.
It really is about transforming that dreaded chore into, hopefully, a catalyst for positive change.
Which, raises an important question, I think. If the goal of appraisals is truly about developing potential and improving performance, how might a consistent application of these principles, fairness, dialogue, focusing on growth, how might that transform the perception of the annual review? Could it become more like an ongoing dynamic conversation about growth rather than just this single high-stakes moment of judgment each year?
That's a powerful thought to ponder. How to make it continuous, not just a yearly snapshot. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into performance appraisals. We hope you feel much more informed and maybe ready to approach them with a fresh, more empowered perspective.